Hi, Sean. Thanks for coming on to the show.
Hey Andy, thanks for having me. Really excited to share my story.
Absolutely. And you really surprised me, Sean. I knew you doing some great stuff, but when you sent over your case study information, you actually gave us a bit more info about some of your other projects, some of the stuff that I would say that you've kept a little quieter, or maybe it's just stuff that you've been too busy to share more of. So actually, I'm really excited to talk to you about one case study in particular, but also I suppose everything that you've been doing in the space, and also what you're moving on to next. But for our listeners, Sean, who maybe aren't as familiar with you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're currently doing and have been up to in the property world?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Sean. Some other people also know me as Sean Cheung as well. And I'm an accountant and a property investor as well. I started my portfolio around 2019. And I got educated before that as well in 2018 through two property companies. So I spent a bit of money on my own education and did lots of networking when it was allowed at the time. And I just expanded my kind of network to just meeting loads of different people, learning, just absorbing stuff like a sponge. Um, and then, yeah, throughout 2020, 2021 was when I really grew my portfolio to where it is today. And at the same time, I'm also an accountant, and I run my own virtual accountancy firm, which everyone works from home. Some are UK based, some are overseas based in the Philippines, and yeah, we just basically serve landlords as well, so it all fits in place.
You've definitely been busy, and you recently got married, and you've got a little one as well. So
Yeah, got married in 2020. We
yeah,
also had a child in 2021, and
yeah.
expecting another child this year. So
Oh,
it was,
congratulations.
yeah,
So,
it's
you sound kind of superhuman, Sean. I've got to be honest. So let's top level, Sean, because I think this is. I think you just told us you've been in this for a few years now. You went and got yourself educated, but in a few years you have built up a really impressive portfolio. Are you allowed to share sort of total value of the HMO portfolio that you've built in that time, Sean?
yeah. So in total, finished projects we're looking at about £5 million
Okay.
GDV. We've got another 12 million worth of projects that are going through at the moment. Some are going through planning, some are going through refurbishment right now, and some even just going through purchasing as well. So
Amazing.
it's it's an exciting time because we're moving to a different space where before it used to be just mainly ensuite HMOs, but now we mix it with studios. We've also got some apartment conversions and also commercial mixed resi. So it really has evolved from where I was 3 years ago, and just s- sticking with the trends as well, because this title splitting thing has become a bit of a game changer for me, and I'm hoping to share that in a year's time when we get this project over the line as well.
Fantastic. So, wow, portfolio value over 5 million in a few years. It's really impressive, Sean. And I know that the first question that all of our listeners will want me to ask is how you've done it. And I think there'll be an assumption that you must have started with a big pot of capital. Maybe you did, maybe from your other business. But just to give us an idea, to give us the context of how you've actually done this, Sean, and done it so quickly, you got yourself educated. What sort of a position were you in, and how, very broadly speaking, how have you actually been able to build a portfolio of that size so quickly?
Right, so at the very start, I was in another accountancy practice where I was with two other partners. So that was very in its very infant stages, and I kind of gave them a shock when I said, I've kind of found a new passion and I want to go this way. I'm going to leave. And I was like, what? You're just going to leave your baby? So I built up some capital from my accountancy in the past because I've been doing it for over 10 years now. And I used to do like loads of HMRC investigations, and we get paid based on results. So we helped a lot of clients just basically get out of sticky situations, and also just negotiate. So negotiation has always been from day one. I also was fortunate to have a small pot of cash as well, just saved up over the years as well. And on top of that, which is the big one, was just investor funds these last
Mhm.
3 4 years, and that kind of grew from like 200 grand. up to about 500,000, and now probably looking about 1.5 million now to date. So that's just spread over different projects, and some even we've managed to get some loans off, like the Derby Homes empty home loans.
Okay.
So as an empty house, after 6 months, you get some money from the council, which is interest free.
Wow.
So it really has been just kind of multiple streams of
Yeah, different
investment, I'd
ways.
say.
And I
Yeah,
assume you've combined that with actually forcing the value up on properties, recycling some of that capital back out, and then
that's
making
right.
that available to maybe pay investors back or roll forwards onto the
Yes.
next one.
Yeah, so we've really utilised commercial valuations, which went through a lot of uncertainty at the time, because the
Yeah.
circle I was with was really, really bricks and mortar based, and kind of swore at you if you went for commercial valuations. But now looking down the line, where I'm at now, it all makes sense, and I've not gone down the wrong road, because I have recycled the cash and paid some investors back. Some have rolled over, and just keep buying and just keep recycling.
Okay, so um, I think it's really important and really great to listen to you share this with us, because I think a lot of people do make assumptions that to build a portfolio of this size at that sort of pace, you must start out with substantially more. And maybe the remainder is just private finance, but actually that combination of yes, some savings, yes, some private finance, yes, a lot of recycling capital, and actually over time that can compound. The results of that can compound really, really quickly, can't they? And it's great to see what you've done. And I mean, I don't want to jump too far ahead in today's show, but you surprised me earlier, Sean, and you said that actually. Well, I hope we're allowed to share this, but you
Yeah,
are
yeah.
maybe thinking about selling a part of your portfolio now because you've had a good offer and it makes sense to you on a personal level. So actually, you're doing something slightly different with a part of, I suppose, your whole portfolio.
Yeah, so the decision came because I always wrote to my goals that I want to see £1 million in the bank, and not that it's going to stay there for long, but uh, just the sale price was the right price, and we're going through the process now. And it's not selling all the properties I've worked quite hard for the last couple of
Yeah.
years, but it's just part of the portfolio, and we're still purchasing more. So it's more of a kind of a replacing HMOs that I deem as a bit more dated now, because
Hmm.
I know it's only 2 3 years in the game, but they do get dated.
Yeah.
They do need like a refresh, and some that are just maybe too small sizes of rooms as well.
Yeah.
They're a bit harder to let, so
Yeah.
I found that just selling part of the portfolio was the right action to take, and
Yeah.
again, cash in and diversify, going to like different streams of income.
Yeah. I've done that over the years, sold bits and pieces off, and you
Yeah,
sell the ones that maybe you don't feel quite the same sentiment towards, or maybe don't quite perform as well, are a little bit stickier to let. But I think that that's part and parcel of the game, and particularly if you want to evolve. And it sounds, Sean, you're very ambitious, and on a very personal level, you want to evolve. And I'll certainly be interested to hear about your plans to reinvest that million. I'm sure you'll do something really, really exciting with it. But yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? HMOs, I think, for so many people are a gateway to many, many other things. And certainly on a personal level, I very much feel the same as well. Recently, I do more development in the commercial space, and that's really interesting to me. But there's no doubt without the HMOs before, that would
yeah,
be really, really difficult for me, because the capital and the cash flow that
yeah.
they've generated make it much easier to do that.
Hmm.
So take us back, Sean. 2018, I think, is when you decided, you know what, I want to take this property stuff a bit more seriously, and you went out and you started to learn a lot more about it. Now, I think sort of around training and education, there's a bit of a taboo. You're obviously
Yeah.
a very switched on guy. You're an accountant. You're chartered. So you understand rules and regulations, and I think it would be really easy to assume that someone like you, Sean, could figure all this stuff out on your own. And I'm sure you're very good with money. It certainly sounds like you are. And property training, you said yourself, you spent quite a lot of money on it. How important was that for you? And I suppose I'm thinking from the position that maybe some of our listeners will be in, thinking about getting into HMOs themselves, perhaps at that stage you were at in 2018. And there's a lot of choice. There's, I suppose, that question, should I actually be using this money to invest in the properties? Well, what advice would you share, and how important was that for you?
So I think at the time I was probably very close-minded, and there was a doubt in my head. I said, look, I could just spend this on a deposit, and
Yeah.
I've bought one house. But then, kind of just going into that space, I just learned that I can go into many houses
Hmm.
and many streams of investment from other sources. Social media is a big one. I think I've calculated today, I raised about 600-700 grand just from social media. And I wouldn't have known that if I wasn't in that space. So, and the main thing is I'm utilizing the investments to create more capital and create more income so that can be easily replaced for what I spent from education. So I think I just made the right choice at the right time, and with not just the education alone, it was also the networking that really, really helped with the right professionals that have been in the game for a long time, brokers and solicitors. So I'm just using their knowledge and learning as I'm going as well. Even being on site at the very, very start to
Yeah.
kind of learn the whole, just even knowing when's first fix, when is second fix, when is plastering.
Yeah.
I didn't know any of that before, and it just really helped, I think. And once I kind of learned something, I just kind of look, how can I utilize the same time but do more projects? I think at the time I said I thought two HMOs is fine. That's enough per year. But then after a bit more mindset training and just a leap of faith, I thought, oh, why not do 10 deals in one year?
Did you find that being around other people who sort of shared similar ambitions gave you that confidence and sort of filled those gaps that maybe you had, and that self doubt about whether you could do it or how to do it?
100%. I was within a group of people that were doing great things as well, even greater as well. Just taking on more projects, and it kind of fueled me to almost be a bit competitive. So look, I've got 8 deals, you got 10 deals, and then just using that as an anchor, not necessarily just to be like, oh, who's got the longest ruler. It's more so just to keep pushing and whatever motivates myself to just keep going and going and going. But at the same time, hitting roadblocks along the way and just solving these challenges. And part of the education was also coaching as well. So I was coached personally, and that really helped with kind of being a bit more focused and
Yeah.
just really going for it.
Yeah, I've had a coach for coming on for 10 years, and it's been
Wow.
a crucial part, and not just in property, in business, and
Yeah.
that support that I've not been able to get maybe from my own family or from my circle of personal friends who we don't talk about property and business that much. We talk about the football and we go down to the pub and we
Yes.
do other stuff. And
Yeah.
that's been so important to me. And it's nice to hear from someone like yourself who is incredibly astute and I'm sure very, very sort of conscious of the decisions and any investments that you're making. That actually that was a really important part of the process here for you.
Yes.
So the first project then, Sean, what was the very first one? Did you? Because we're going to talk about a 14 bed today. Fantastic case
Yeah.
study, good numbers, really juicy. But what was the first project for you back then?
So I initially bought two three-bed HMOs, and when I say three beds, they were just your two bed, two lounge, and just converted the front into a
Hmm.
bedroom. They were quite cheap at the time. It was about 120, 118,000, and the capital employed was around 20 to 30 grand. But at the same time, you're leaving money in for about 3 years.
Yeah,
So then my capital's tied up already. That's where I had to seek more funds. And
yeah,
when I got some investors on board, I started doing two six beds alongside those two three beds that were rented out. Um, as soon as I got those two six beds over the line, I just decided to do more and more and more.
hmm
And it was only when October 19 kicked, I just had that kind of epiphany and just decided to chase after all these deals in like a few weeks. And just before Christmas, they were all agreed. I don't know. I always found Christmas is a great time to shop for deals because a lot of people probably concentrating on Christmas shopping.
I totally agree. Some of the best properties I've ever bought have been in the early January auction.
Yeah,
When people are still a bit sleepy from Christmas and
yeah,
haven't been bothered to make the viewings over the Christmas holidays and stuff. So, do
yeah.
you think that starting with the smaller projects was the right thing to do? Sure. Was it the right thing for you to do, or would you, in retrospect, would you change that and have gone straight in on the big ones? And for other people, maybe in that similar position, just getting started, what would your advice be? Would it be to start and think about smaller projects, or not
I think it
be too
depends
worried?
on what do you class as a small project.
Well, I think like between a 3 and 4 beds, I would consider a smaller project. I guess I'm making an assumption there that it's not at 45 degrees, and it just needs a general refurb, not
Yeah,
too structurally
yeah.
dependent. Yeah, that kind of thing.
I think it does depend on confidence level.
Hmm.
So if you're very high in confidence, you could probably take on a six bed and get have a few challenges to get it over the line. But then, if you're a bit more low in confidence, then maybe surround yourself with people that
Do a
have
bit
done
bigger
it.
ones.
Yeah, and then that might push yourself to do what they call a small project. So ultimately, it is dependent on who do you surround yourself and just where your confidence level is.
Well, a well balanced answer, I think, there, Sean. Um,
Yeah,
well, actually, I started with a 5 bed. It was 109,000, which doesn't exist anymore. Certainly not where I invest. But it was a smaller project, certainly smaller than many projects I've done since. But I think I personally would have really struggled to do anything much bigger than that. In fact, that was a real stretch for me at the time. Just like you said, just very much on a confidence level, just being able to manage builders and be confident enough to pull builders up on things that didn't look or sound right when I didn't
you
really
just
even
kind
know
of go along
myself.
with it.
Yeah. So you started in 2018. You got a good few properties under your belt. You started to pick up traction. You developed your confidence and did more and more and more. And that's grown and grown. And today we're going to talk about a 14 bed. You've raised loads of private investment on the way. You mentioned before we kicked off that some of that has actually been in the form of JVs since as well. And I think the project that we're talking about today was one of those JVs. And actually, you've got a good offer on a part of the portfolio as well. So it's really nice to see, Sean, here. You've got an example of kind of the whole start to finish process, where I think it's probably the first time we've actually had that on the show. I know you're not getting into the whole portfolio, and I'm glad. But it's really
Yeah,
nice. I want to dive into your portfolio then, and talk a little bit about the mix and the location, and because I think that that's
yeah.
really important, particularly if you're scaling at this sort of pace. So you're predominantly around the Derby area, is that right, Sean?
Yes, I'm based in Derby, live in Derby as well.
Okay. So that was going to be my next question. Was that because you were there and you were close? Because Derby's quite a unique one. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sean, but doesn't have an Article 4 direction.
No Article 4.
No
Yeah.
Article 4. So quite unusual, quite unique. Is there any intentions of them bringing that in? Is it on the cards or?
I think the last time I spoke to a HM officer was probably about November last year, and he said he can't really see it happening
Okay.
yet, but selective licensing
Mhm.
first.
Mhm.
So they're more the concentrated areas where there is a problem going on,
That's right.
and
And some
they're not
naughty
doing it out of
landlords.
fun.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
And what about the tenant mix then? What I know you've got some student HMOs and I know you've got some professional HMOs. So how did it start and how's that evolved and what has your decision making been behind, I suppose, the mix that you've ended up with?
So at the very start, 3 out of 4 were students, and one was professionals.
You know
And
what I'm going to ask you straight away, Sean.
yeah,
What's your preference? What do you prefer, students or professionals?
I prefer students.
Yes, good man. I'll give you that
Yeah.
fiver afterwards. All of our listeners know that I prefer the student stuff. Although I'm saying this on the 14th of June as we're recording, 10 days out from student changeover, and
Yeah.
it's not the it's not the best week of the year. But why, Sean? Like, why do you prefer students over professionals?
I think it's just the forward bookings
Hmm.
because in November, December, January, we know who we're going to get in July.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't even know until maybe May, June time,
Hmm.
and some even July, August when they go through clearing.
Yeah.
So there's always tenants around the corner, and as long as we fit that development within that cycle, it just gets filled year on year, and that's what I like. We get paid quarterly as well,
Yeah.
so every June, September, January,
Your big lumps
April,
come
a
in. Yeah.
nice lump sum
Yeah.
comes in.
Yeah.
It gets a bit dry around the July August time, I
I,
must say.
I know.
Sometimes.
And then then the big utility bills come in, and you think, oh god. But yeah, that is nice actually. For various reasons over the years, I've graduated back to just taking the rents every month. That we prefer that, but it was really nice when we would, sort of 100 properties worth of rents would come in, one day
Yeah,
of the month, and all of a sudden the bank accounts were looking particularly good.
healthy.
It's a nice feeling. Okay, yeah, I get that. I totally get that. Now, I've said it a lot. That cyclical nature, the predictability of the student cycle, condensing your efforts, get them led in October, November, December, get them filled and turned over in July, which I know is when you're doing your changeover as well. So I think the question before that I asked was the decision making around that portfolio and how you started. So the first three actually you bought were student, you turned into student ones. Was that a really active and very conscious decision for you, Sean? Had you already decided before sort of getting into the HMO space you were going to try and invest in predominantly student HMOs?
I think I was conscious because everyone else was banging on about professionals,
Okay, that's
and then
interesting.
I thought if everyone's investing in the same area and doing professionals, then why do I do the opposite? And
Okay, yeah,
with all the benefits that entailed, I thought it just made sense.
yeah.
That's what it was.
Okay, that's interesting. You're the first person who said that. You are the first person who said that. You saw a lot of people doing the alternative, and so yeah, you went in a different direction. And has it worked well for you? The student market in Derby, has it been strong? Are you confident in that market?
I feel very confident in the market because just year on year they just get let out. Our rents are stronger than professionals at one point at a time. We were charging 125, 130 a week, whereas before professionals used to be in the average of 480, 500.
Hmm.
So you get an uplift on the student lets.
Hmm.
Um, but it comes with a bit of a drawback because you're dealing with a younger profile, which may be a little bit less mature.
Yeah.
Just telling them how to pull the bins out can be a bit
Yeah.
frustrating. So,
Definitely, you've got
um,
to be a bit more patient, and I
yes,
think
yeah,
better prepared and more proactive with students. I think
that's right.
than professionals. Certainly, that's what we found over the years. But at the end of the day, they're still students. They still have parties. But I
Yeah,
don't know. We found over the years, Sean, that actually there are very few tenants who really kind of fulfil that really terrible sort of picture and view that a lot of people do have about student tenants. Yeah, they're a bit messy
yeah.
sometimes. Yeah, they can be a bit more difficult to manage. But we've never, in 10, 12 years, I don't think we've had any kind of serious issues of malicious damage, non-payment of rent. Have you had any of that?
We have had some people that haven't paid rent, but that I've kind of learned over the years. It just goes through a process now.
Hmm.
If they don't pay, it goes to the debt collectors, and then they deal with
Yeah,
everything. Legal fees get added onto the debt,
yeah.
and then eventually it goes to court,
Hmm.
and then we get paid.
Hmm.
So it's just one of those cash flow planning. You just got to make sure you've got enough cash to cover the
Yeah.
bills whilst this one or two tenant doesn't pay. And that's probably why HMOs are great because out of six, if one doesn't pay, you've still got the other five.
Yeah, and you can lean on
So
them and the guarantors as well.
yes, guarantors as well. Yeah.
That's a nice segue into bills then. Let's talk about bills. I know this is a hot topic at the minute, and I'm asking
Oh,
everyone, although I'd never
yeah.
really, there's not a great answer at the minute, but bills. How do you manage bills, and how are you managing
Uh,
the issues with bills at the minute? Rising utility costs.
so what we found is we all have smart meters in at least 90% of the portfolio, and we're all with one supplier as well, OVO
Hmm.
Energy. Luckily, a lot of them are fixed until next year, so I've not really had the
You've not
hit
been hit.
yet. But how I've been hit is when they set the direct debits, they were still estimating my bills,
Okay.
even though they have a smart meter. So I have had a massive ream of bills saying, "Oh, you've accumulated this amount of debt, and we need to up your direct debit anyways." So we're seeing about 350, 400 just on electricity and gas alone
Mm.
now. And does it hurt? It is what it is. I think everyone else is going through the same thing. So we've put our rents up. So a good thing about the professional lets as a plus side is when ASTs are due, we do renew them and put the rents
Hmm.
up. So that has covered the cost. And again, with the student lets, they're already quite high already, so that helps. And there's no council tax on the students
Hmm.
as well, so we've kind of utilised that in our favour to just kind of balance the books, I'd
Hmm.
say.
So
Um,
even though costs have gone up, you've been able to manage them well enough really to not actually be negatively impacted. You put rents up, you've managed to fix in sensibly.
Yes, I think we probably lost around 100 and £150 a
Hmm.
month from where we were
Hmm.
before, but at the same time,
Is that per property,
um,
Sean? Then, per,
per
yeah.
property, let's
Hmm.
say, yeah. But I've got to look at it as a whole portfolio. Like if it was just one standalone HMO, it'll probably hurt
Hmm.
more. But because we've got quite a few,
It soon racks
it
up,
really
doesn't
does
it?
help.
It does. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Every
yeah.
month it's £100 on every additional property. Over 12 months, we're talking thousands, tens of thousands, and potentially much more. So it is something to be really conscious of. We've done the same. We've managed to sidestep the worst of it. Did a podcast episode on it recently, actually. But I'm looking ahead at next July already, and I can see that we're going to have to really think quite cleverly about the rents that we advertise this year. They're going to have to go up again, but I'm a bit
Yeah.
conscious that if we because when we put our rents up last year, our tenants weren't really experiencing a cost of living crisis, and
Yes.
now they're much more aware of it. They are actually feeling that pinch, and I think
Yes.
when we put rents up this October for next year, I think if we just add on another 10, 15%, whatever we feel like we need to, it won't be digested quite so well. So we're thinking about actually for the first time in a long time reverting for the student houses to bills exclusive. Still
Yeah.
maybe nudging the rent up a little bit, but letting the tenants deal with the utilities. Actually, it removes a big admin piece for us, which costs money, and I'm sure you're aware.
Hmm.
What are you thinking about, yeah, looking ahead? Are you thinking this far ahead yet?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned about the portfolio that we're selling. Most of them are ensuite
Hmm.
HMOs. There are a couple studios mixed in there, but what I'm retaining are mainly
Hmm.
studios. So again, similar to yourself, we are considering bills
Hmm.
exclusive with the
Hmm.
studios. Um, just for example, very recent, we've got a two-bed flat that we used to live in. We've put that on open rent, and everywhere else is probably marketed for 750, 700. We put on for 800, bills exclusive. Within a day,
Hmm.
we had two doctors that want it,
Hmm.
and their income is circa about 5 to 6 grand a
Hmm.
month. So there is a market out
Hmm.
there for the bills
Yeah,
exclusive,
I think so.
and overseas students as well. They have quite a lot of capital as well,
Mm.
and they can afford to basically forge the cost that you want to put your prices up.
Mm.
But you don't want to alienate the whole market, and it only works for certain properties in certain locations, I'd say.
Interesting. I guess we'll all see how this plays out, but it doesn't look like they're coming down anytime soon. So I suspect that probably is the direction we're going to go. But I'll be interested to
Yeah,
see what you decide to do in the end, Sean.
yeah,
So we're going to talk about this 14-bed case study. I can't wait to get into the detail of that. But before we do, I and we said this before we kicked off, and actually you were great. You said, actually, there's a lot of stuff that hasn't gone well over the years. We've talked about the good stuff, sort of done the highlight reel, good numbers, number of projects, really fast. You seem cool and calm and very collected, Sean, but it can't have all been easy and smooth and plain sailing. What sort of issues have you encountered along the way building this portfolio?
Oh wow. So I've had builders that have gone bust, walking away with 20 grand just in their pockets. We've had COVID as well, so sites being on hold.
Hmm.
And when I say sites, there was about 4 or 5 sites that were just kind of
Oh
stalemate.
wow.
Um, I've had other road builders that have just walked off site as well. We've had party wall issues with a property. What else is
You
there?
talked about a leak
Neighbours.
when you went on holiday,
Oh,
landed, and had a pretty bad leak.
yeah, so we went on holiday for our belated honeymoon and my 30th birthday. As soon as I landed, airplane mode off, and a video came up on
Oh
WhatsApp,
no.
and the whole of our 14 bed was flooded because a push fit pipe hadn't gone
So,
in
so
properly.
that's this project that we're going to talk about.
Yeah,
Oh
that's
my
it. That's this
gosh.
project. So it's had its ups and downs, but fortunately we had insurance and they sorted
Hmm.
everything out. So it's sort of it didn't really hurt us financially, but mentally and just kind of dealing
Hmm.
with the loss assessors and just getting people in to fix it and claiming liability.
What about?
And that's I was gonna say that's not the only leak we've had as well. We've had a couple leaks in different properties as
I
well.
mean, it's part and parcel of being a landlord, isn't it? Leaks, but when you've
Yeah,
just finished a refurb and when you just go on holiday,
yeah.
there's nothing worse because you can't even be there to go around yourself and assess the damage. Um, what about planning? you've done some big projects. These aren't all permitted developments. What about HMO licensing? Have you had any issues with things like that? What about investors and finance? Have you had any issues with anything like that?
I'll start off with investors. So when people say you're biting more meat off the bone than you can chew, I literally did that because I was agreeing to deals that I could buy, and I didn't even have the money in the bank. Yes, I had the refinance come in, so about 200 grand in the account, but I used the same proof of funds for about 8 different
Okay.
agents. It's a bit naughty, but I had the mindset of by the time I get to the completion, which is 3 4 months time,
You'll
I'll
figure
have
it
the
out.
money because I would
Yeah.
have raised it
Yeah.
by now. Yeah, and that's literally. I even had to stretch some to the 14 or 10 day um, kind of completion period, notice to complete, and we've had to switch solicitors halfway through some deals because they weren't able to act. We've had solicitors that didn't receive our documents just like on the corner of completion where we're ready to complete. So there's loads of things that come into the mix, and bill prices have gone up as well recently. So that's something that has hit us really hard, and just added extra costs and even extra time just to redesign to increase the value,
Hmm.
just to make the deal work. And planning wise, fortunately, a lot of my six beds were PD, but I did later on go in for the sui generis just to get an 8 person in there because we have couple studios and we do want to rent to couples because it increases the rent. And there's probably only one planning application that went sour because of the councillor. And then our latest hotel deal, just poorly managed by the architect that we're using, but also on us as partners as well, that we weren't on top of it
Yeah.
all the time to just kind of see it through. So there's
Yeah.
loads of different things that have kind of cropped up, and we've learnt from it. Learnt from
I
it.
think it's important to take responsibility. It's easy, isn't it, to point the finger and blame, but actually, there are properties. It's our investment business. We've got to manage the people managing certain things, and it's nice that you
Yeah,
say that actually, Sean, because something I do see a lot of is a lot of pointing the finger at other people and solicitors and builders and things like that. And yes, they do make our lives and can make our lives really, really difficult. But we can also make our own lives quite difficult sometimes by not
yeah,
intervening a bit sooner, not being more proactive in the choices we make. Just recently, I was just chatting to somebody who's having an issue with a price that's come back from the builder at the last minute. They've increased it by about 30%. It's
yeah.
incredibly expensive. The planning's all aligned. There's a period where the property's vacant to do the works, and it's a substantial project. But they didn't get prices from anybody else. They just went with this one builder that they knew was being a bit tricky, and all of a sudden they're in a position where they feel like they've got a gun to their head. Either they go with this builder whose price has come back extortionately more than they were anticipating, or they say no, we go back to the drawing board. We're gonna tender it back out again. But I think the
And
proactivity,
you lose a lot of time during that
a
process as
huge
well
amount,
if you kind of go back and forth, and that costs
a
you money
huge
as
amount.
well.
It's
So
a difficult position to be in. It's a predicament. But I think doing the right thing in the first instance, having those conversations, assessing the field, making sure that everything's really tight and bound in terms of quotes and estimates is really, really important. So a bit
yeah.
of everything really there, Sean. You've had issues with all sorts of things building your portfolio and your projects. Let's have a chat about this 14 bed then. It's a fantastic case study. Love the pictures that you sent over. For all of our listeners, of course, Sean's case study is going to be there and waiting for you inside the roadmap. Um, Tell us a little bit about this project then, Sean.
Yeah, so basically, this project came to me around November time, 2019. It was literally from my wife and our then agent as well, because my wife actually drove past a few times. I drove past a few times and just saw the shutters down all the time. And said, "Oh, it looks closed." So then I asked the agent because it was opposite. Do you know who owns that? And then he asked the chippy next door. So the chippy ended up being the uncle of the
Okay.
owner. And then we got in touch, went to the cafe shop, which is literally next door as well. And I said, "Look, what's happened and what do you want for it?" And he was like, "Oh, you're lucky because I was literally going to put it on the market next week." He just had a weed grower upstairs.
Okay.
So the police actually went in and had to clear the whole site. and he was ready to sell. At the time, he had the understanding of, because there's an option to tax on it, he thought he had to sell it with VAT, which pushed the price to about 350, 360. And I said, oh, hold on, we want to convert it into residential, and I can get the VAT off. So that brought the price down to about 285, which is a massive saving. And we shook hands around my birthday, actually, November 19, and then through planning, 2020. So this is where everyone knows what happened.
The world
I think,
changed.
yeah. At the time, we wasn't sure what's happening with planning. Are they going to be a bit delayed? But luckily, we got our application back in 16 weeks. Is it 16 weeks?
It's pretty
8
good
weeks?
through
No,
COVID.
10 weeks. Sorry.
10
Yeah,
weeks
10
through COVID.
weeks. 10 weeks. Yeah, 10 weeks.
Wow.
That's not my fastest one. I'll tell you. But 10 weeks, and then and we just completed in July, and as soon as completion in July, I think there was a holiday period. I don't know where they went on holiday, but they started in August, and we managed to get the deal completed and rented out and refinanced last
Wow.
year.
Okay, so you
So
literally went and knocked on the door. You asked the neighbours, and you got in there before anybody else because you had the nous to just go and ask the question, which is so
that's
funny.
it. That's
Most
it.
people don't do.
Yeah. Just talking to shop owners, because they know people in the community, and if they've been there for a while, they're gonna know other people in different areas. So I found that has been a great anchor in finding deals, especially direct to vendor.
So this was a mixed unit. It was a commercial space downstairs, which is shuttered up, and then there was a flat above. That's right, isn't it, Sean?
Yes, it was a four-bed flat previously.
And what sort of size was this whole building?
We're looking about 3,000 square
So
feet, I'd
good
say.
size, a
So
good
it's
lump of
quite
property.
good lump of property on a corner, right next to the university, which was another attraction, and it's literally just screaming at you to do something with it. So it was a great opportunity.
So you went into planning for 14. Did you got 14? Is that what you went in with? Did you get pushed back at all?
No, we got what we wanted.
You got what you wanted. Great.
Yeah,
So
two,
your architect just maxed out the scheme. You got as many studios in there as you could. Is that what you developed it
so
into?
we got as many ensuite rooms on
Hmm.
2 floors,
Hmm.
which were two six beds in the main building, and then the bungalow at the back, we decided to go for wheelchair accessibility rooms. And yeah, the planners loved it, I guess, and just went ahead with it.
Fantastic. So 285. That's what you paid.
Yep,
Your development costs were about 315,000.
315, and we also had some fees as well that we paid for our holding costs, which are about 114. So we were all in for
Okay.
about 715.
Okay, great. And how did you finance all of that, Sean?
We use bridging and investor finance as well as JVs. So basically, my JV partner Heather, she has investors and she funded most of the deal. But throughout the process, we had times where we needed cash flow, and then that's where me and Sam put some money in as well.
Okay.
Um,
So actually, again, a bit of everything. You had a JV partner. You then, as partners, you brought in some private investment. You also put a bit of your own capital in, and you used a bridge loan.
that's it.
Okay, fantastic. So I think it's really interesting because a lot of people think that it needs to be much cleaner or simpler than that, and maybe ideally it would be. It's just someone who just funds the whole project, but in reality, often not how it pans out. You still needed a lot of money to buy and develop this, and you drew on a variety of resources to make it happen.
That's right. And I think to add to that, we also made use of the bounce back loans as well. So
Okay.
as a collective of three, we managed to raise some cash from there as well, legitimately as well, based on actual turnover,
Hmm.
and that's also helped with going towards this project. Not that we've used it to buy fancy cars or anything personal. So it's been a massive help.
Fantastic. So you were all in for seven. Did you say 750 then, Sean, or 700?
715, 715.
715. Okay.
Yeah,
And your end value was 850. Is that right?
850. That's right.
Good. So you've made a good chunk of capital on the back end valuation. And tell us about the cash flow then. That's a good number of rooms.
So I always had in mind that to JV, to have enough meat on a bone, we'd need at least £1,000 net cash flow each, and that was around £3,000 for all three of us, and we got 3,400 as that's our main cash flow per month.
Fantastic. Do you think you said something then which I think is really interesting, and it was about having enough meat on the bone. This is a conversation that's come up a number of times that I've had with people looking to build their portfolios, considering bringing in partners and looking at projects. And one of the things, I'll often do, when I've looked at the numbers and say, look, the project in itself is okay, but you're going to do all of this work, and this is actually what you are going to take away at the end of this project. You've got your partner to share that with. Is it worth it? Is it worth all of this work, or is there a better or an alternative way, a different way to think about this? So, do you think that that's really important? And where does that £1,000 come from? Is it an arbitrary figure? Is it based on a return on your own time? You've got a lot of stuff going on.
To be fair, I feel as though it's just a figure I had in mind, really. Because if I was to do a six bed by myself, I'd be looking at probably £1,500 a month, let's say.
Yeah.
And I just compared it to that. If I was going to do this by myself, then I'll probably get that. But if I join it with my partners and still get almost that same amount, then why not? And I also was kind of pushed towards. I had too many deals to fund at the time, so my last resort was let's reach out and JV and just
Yeah.
see where it goes. Really,
Better to take a percentage of something than 100% of nothing.
that's it. That's it.
So, how long did the project take to develop, Sean? It's a big project.
Exactly 1 year.
Wow.
Exactly
Okay.
1 year.
And that was
August
through
through
COVID, wasn't it?
through COVID as well. Yeah. So through COVID and towards the front end of 2021. So a bit more normality during that time, and we had it ready for students in July 2021.
And the valuation at the back end. That's a commercial valuation, is it?
That's correct. Yeah.
Do you mind me asking who you used to lend with on that, Sean?
Shawbrook Bank.
Yeah, Shawbrook. I thought you'd probably say Shawbrook. They tend to have quite a liberal approach, don't they, to commercial valuations and HMOs and they like student stuff as well. Fantastic. So, you're all in for 715. The building's worth 850. It's netting you nearly 3.5 grand a month. It took a year to develop, and you put a little bit of your own capital in, and we're just really creative about it. It sounds like a fantastic deal. It really, really does sound great. What sort of issues did you have? Did you have any issues? COVID must have been an issue here.
I think definitely COVID because, like I said, these were one of the sites that we didn't start the build because so by July time, places merchants were open again, so that was fine. But we did find that there was a bit of scarcity in certain materials, which put the price up slightly, and also just the spec as well. So we initially were told there was soundproofing because it was a shop with flats above, and there was, but it just wasn't adequate for the building regulations that we had to adhere to. So that was an extra like 10,000, and also services as well. We were quite lucky. They were close to our building, so we didn't have to do road closures, but there's
Yeah.
still a little bit more that we didn't really factor in. But that
Yeah.
all kind of came within the 10%, let's say 15% contingency that we had. So those were challenges. Just trying to get people to show up as well. Sometimes people had COVID and couldn't come to site, and also builders were busy with other projects as well. So just kind of being promised it'll get done in 1 week, but then it comes the week after. So just certain things that kind of just build up really, and it compounds over the course of the refurb.
Well, all the pictures are inside the HMO roadmap, the before and after. Sean's wife's there behind the bar pulling a pint.
No,
and
no, that's a
yeah.
different property.
Oh, is
Yeah,
that a different property?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, well, maybe we'll put that one in as well. Sean's
Yeah.
been buying, because this project was originally, before it was last used commercially, was also originally a pub, wasn't it?
Yes, it was a pub.
Okay,
It's actually called
interesting.
the Derby Mile, so there was a mile long of pubs,
Okay.
which a lot of them have been converted over time now.
Okay. And of course, all of the numbers there, so you can get a really good and in-depth understanding of where Sean's costs are on this, the actual operational costs of the property as well. But it's a fantastic project, Sean. It's been a real pleasure talking to you about this, and it's just really inspiring sitting across the screen from people like yourself and hearing about how you've done it and seeing how well you've done it and at the pace that you've done it is really, really great. For any of our listeners who maybe want to reach out, maybe there's a way that they could work with you, maybe they're interested in investing with you, how best would they contact you, Sean?
I think a lot of people go via Facebook or Instagram, so it's just Sean C Property on both of them, and yeah, I mean email as well. I don't know if you put an email on the page. A lot of
Well,
people
we'll
do
put an
reach out
email
as
with your
well.
case study. And what I would
Yeah,
say is Sean's hangs out in the HMO community as well, don't you, Sean? So you're over there sometimes knocking about. So
I'm
there'll be anyone who
I'm
wants to, yeah, ask you about your
I'm
projects or
always
anything else
watching.
that you're doing, can head over there. Sean, thank you for coming on the show. Thanks for sharing the ups and downs of building your portfolio. Thanks for telling us about this fantastic deal, and I wish you the best of luck with your sale. And I'm really excited to see what you do next. Before we wrap up for today, do you have any ideas what you're going to do? If you do sell and the sale goes through and you're going to sell part of your portfolio, have you got any ideas what you're going to do with £1 million?
So I think for us, part of us, we do want to move into a new family home. We only moved in here last year, but because of an extra party coming along, we might need the extra space. So that'll be on the cards. And I'm just open to probably doing more deals, and maybe be an investor, really, I guess. Because I've always said to my investors, I'd love to be in your shoes. And
Yeah.
that's because it's more passive as an investor, I'd say.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you've definitely earned that privilege, Sean. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Thanks for sharing your story. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, Andy.